Yeah, welcome to the CXM at MSU Monthly Roundtable. We're really excited today. We're joined by one of the faculty from the MS-CXM program. I'm going to turn it over to our facilitator, Alistair Meffin, who is going to take the uninitiated through the process that we go through in our roundtables.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom. So for those of you who haven't been with us, we do keep a pretty tight agenda here. We want to make sure that we leave a good amount of time at the end for discussion, and especially with our guest today, who will be more than happy to answer questions and everything. So super excited. We start off 15-minute lightning rounds. Our presenter will take you through a very specific topic and give you some framework that you'll be able to leverage, not just in your breakout sessions, but then immediately turn around and be able to take it back to your companies. We then give you a problem to solve. We'll put you into small breakout rooms of no more than 4 people, where you'll go through that process, and then we'll bring you back. There'll be a voting session where you'll actually go back into the mural board and vote on what you think are the best questions or comments or solutions. And then finally, we'll bring you back in where the presenter and I will go through the top vote getters, but also take questions from the audience and go over anything that we find super interesting amongst the agenda there. So without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce Z, who, as Tom mentioned, is one of the professors for the CXM at MSU program. He is an industry expert, focusing a lot in the voice of customer area. And so we're super excited to have him talk to you about what are the right questions that you should be asking as part of a voice of customer survey. And we'll be honing in specifically on brand promise, and what questions you should be asking as part of that brand promise, whether it be discount, luxury, etc. So we can all take something away and go back. So without further ado, Z, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Sorry, I had to find the mute button there, and I will hand it over to my screen. Let me know if that comes up the way it should. Ideally. Alistair, that look good? Tom, that look all right? All right. Well, what I lack in technical capabilities, I have in words, so I'll continue on then. So thanks, Alistair. Thanks, Tom. It's great to see, as Tom had said, so many familiar faces. Thanks for joining. The topic this day is voice of the customer, and as gracious as it was for Alistair to say that I know anything about it, I guess I do. But on the other hand, my background really comes more from process engineering, and the approach that I take to CX and quote unquote doing CX, the practice of customer experience, really centers on taking action and doing things about the way a company and a business runs and operates, so as to drive better customer experiences. It's kind of like tying the knot in between what we hear from the customers and what we do for a living in a way. And of course, the VOC has a huge role in that. It should be guiding us. And in fact, that's what a lot of this presentation is about today. So all that throat clearing in to say that I can't find my mouse. There it is. Okay, so let's move into the beginning of this. We talk about the voice of the customer and VOC, and of course, those of us CXers, as I call us, really love the concept of VOC. But I am a big fan of Simon Sinek, and anybody who's read my book or has sat through my class in the MS-CXM program is aware that I reference him a lot. And you know, his big thing is starting with why. And so we're going to take a little exercise going down the path of why and asking why a few times. And the first of those is, why is it that we care? Why are we doing VOC? Why are we asking our customers things? Why are we looking into the VOC? And of course, the answer to that should be that that plays a huge, important beginning role in the broader CX program that we have within our organizations. A lot of folks make the mistake, and I'm sure that if I could see every face at the same time, I'd see some nods as I say that some people think that their VOC program is the CX program, or that the entire CX program consists of nothing more than, well, we send out an NPS survey from time to time, and that's kind of what it is. But obviously, the VOC program is the important input into the CX program, which is actually broader than that. So when we ask ourselves, why are we conducting VOC in the first place? It is because we are providing that as an input into the CX program. Why are we doing CX? What's the purpose of CX, though? We start to dig into these whys that we'll ask. The reason that we have a CX program in the first place is what I call brand alignment. And what I mean by alignment is that we are driving alignment between our brand promise, which is what we intend to be to the outside world, with the customers' experiences that they have when they interact with our brand. We're looking for that brand gap. And that's why we do CX, is that we are looking to align our customers' experiences with what we promise them they're going to experience when they interact with our brands in the first place. So pushing on through here, why do we care about alignment? What's so important? What's so great about brand alignment? And this, as always in any business proposition, should lead us down to, well, yeah, business results. What we're trying to do is provide better business results. We want more sale. We want more sales. We want higher revenue. We want greater market share. We want that loyalty from our customers. At the end of the road, at the end of the day, all of this should be to provide, those business results. That's the whole heart. That's the heart and soul of it. That's why we're trying to do any of the things that we do. Okay, so rather than just follow the squirrel into the up the tree, we're going to actually follow the same thing back, because it's fun and it's useful and it's valuable to ask those questions, why. But then the other thing is we should actually go back, because the end of the why trail should tell us, should guide us as to whether or not we're doing those things along that chain properly. So we start with those business results then. So we have to ask ourselves, and this can be kind of an existential thing that we might have to wonder about, are those business results going to happen if we do have that alignment between our brand promise and what I call our brand delivery? Is that something that we should rely on? Is that something that we should expect? And is that something that's going to happen? If we have brand alignment, will that result in better, positive business results? And here's how, fortunately, I've never had this, and I leave it out there for potential clients. Is it possible that you could have great alignment, which is to say your customers really do believe that you're delivering on that brand promise, and yet it doesn't result in greater sales? It doesn't result in higher revenue or better market share? That, yeah, your customers love you, but it turns out that there's really not a place in the market for that brand promise. Now, that's something that could be pretty awkward to happen, but we're going to kind of assume that it is the case. We're going to rely on our CMO and our entire marketing team for having actually picked the right brand promise. But we have to keep in mind that all of this is leading toward this, that the brand alignment is assumed to deliver on business results if we have it. So let's concentrate then on that brand alignment. Does our CX program actually deliver on that brand alignment? Well, that depends on the work that you do within your CX program. You could have a CX program that is all about, hey, putting up banners that say, we love the customer, and handing out t-shirts with a little heart and the customer, CX, or something like that. You could redraw your org chart with the customer at the top and the CEO at the bottom of this inverted pyramid. That's great. But if that's what you call your CX program, that's not going to lead to brand alignment. The only thing that's going to lead to brand alignment is taking action and improving the things that you do and the way that you do business, so that the outcome is that your customers are receiving and are engaging with your brand promise when they interact with your brand. Okay, so that leads us back up here then to the VOC. Does the VOC enable those actions? Does the VOC deliver the proper insights into what it's going to take to act on what your VOC is saying to drive that alignment, to give you those business results. So now we're back at the top of the funnel again. We're back to the VOC. So let's talk about the VOC for a bit. All sorts of things that go into your VOC program. You've got surveys, you've got interviews. Ideally, you're walking in your customer's shoes and having those experiences yourself so you know firsthand whether or not there's a brand alignment. You can go down to the contact center and ask them, hey, what's going on? What are our customers calling in? What are the problems that they're expressing? Okay, all of these other things, the CX program, the alignment, the business results, those should all inform how you do VOC. But let's talk about VOC from a more theoretical perspective, because there's traditional VOC and we have things like NPS, which of course anybody who's met me knows I love to crap all over NPS. But it isn't because NPS isn't good, it's that because these KPIs are an issue. Here's the problem. I'll line it out for you. If your NPS is 75, that's great. You're awesome. And everybody knows that. And that's easy to interpret. If your NPS is minus 45, it's like, well, you really have a lot of work to do. You're not good. That's just simply not good. And if you're at 15, it's like, okay, well, you're in the meaty fat part of the curve. That's okay. You know, you're obviously room for improvements and things could be better, but I don't know. I guess you're fine. And this isn't about NPS because I could do the same thing with CSAT. If you're a 5, you're not good. If your CSAT is 5%, that's horrible, but I'm not telling you something you don't already know. If you're 55, it's like that 15 on NPS. There you are, you're kind of in the middle. It's okay, I guess. It's something that's okay. If you're 85, that's your CSAT is 85%. You're just blowing it out of the water. And you really need to keep it up. But here's the thing. What is that it? Keep what up? What are you going to do? Right? It. When I say keep it up and you have an 85 CSAT, all I'm talking about is the number 85. Yeah, keep that up. But what are you talking about? Ultimately, you're talking about the KPI. Here's your KPIs. I'll give you a graph. You want to run your CX system based on KPIs, based on VOC? Here you go. They say that what gets measured gets managed. All right, cowboy. Here's your number. You're measuring it. Go ahead and manage that. Good luck. I have no idea. I am a statistician myself, and I couldn't tell you how to manage that. And I can give you all sorts of historical data, and you're not going to know how to manage it either. Because first, there's one thing called VOC, but then there's another thing that's called insights, right? VOC is one side of it. It may be useful because you need to know where you are. You're better than your competition. You're worse than your competition. Your boss, your CEO wants to know where you are. Okay, well, there's utility. I can use it, but it isn't usable. It may be useful. It's not usable. Your VOC, that is. Your insights, on the other hand, well, that's something different because you actually can use insights if you have insights. But if you're not thinking about why you're asking in the first place, then you're not going to get those insights. So let's go back to Simon Sinek again. Talk about that why. And that why is going to drive the who, the what, the when, and the how, and all the other questions about your VOC program. Keep in mind, the purpose of deriving customer insights is to develop a roadmap for taking action. And that roadmap is going to drive all of those other logistics about your interview system or your survey system or however you're putting together what your VOC program is. It's going to define the frequency and the method of finding out what those insights are. If you're going to ask questions in a survey, it'll drive what those questions are. What are the formats of your survey? Are you going to use NPS or something else? Frankly, I don't care because those aren't going to provide you with insights anyway, but you've got to ask different, better other questions. Frankly, why you're doing it might drive whether you ask your customers at all, because maybe you can get those insights without pestering your customers to fill out a survey or sit for an interview or be on some panel of experts. Here's a pro tip. Replace your VOC program altogether with a customer insights program. That's going to actually provide you with something that's useful because the emphasis is going to be on what you're going to do with those insights. What action you're going to take. You may decide you don't want to take surveys at all. Hold that thought, though. Put a pin in it because we will do an exercise here in just a second that'll have to do with surveys. You're looking for that gap in your brand delivery, and that'll guide not only what you ask, but whether you ask at all. Okay, So now we're talking about where are my brand alignment gaps? So how do I go about finding those? Remember, we listed all these other things earlier: surveys, interviews, walking in your customer's shoes, and the contact center. For purposes of this activity, and since we're gathered here today and we're going to use a mural board, and technology is very valuable and important, and we probably are paying a license for it, so let's use a mural board, right, Tom? We're gonna concentrate on surveys and interviews. So keeping in mind that the purpose for surveys and interviews, which is only part of your VOC program, is to identify brand alignment gaps. You think about things like, what are you going to ask? And then the follow-on things about who and how and when and under what circumstances you're going to ask your customers. Drive it that way. So here's an exercise that we're going to do, and we'll bring up the mural board here in just a minute. But first, let me walk you through what we're going to do. You're going to break up into groups. And your group will be assigned, based on whatever your group number is, one of 4 different brand promises. So these are scenarios. Think that your brand has a specific brand promise. You will ask an interview question, a survey question, whatever. And then frankly, I don't even care what format it is. Rate us on a number scale from 1 to 10, or rank us. Here's a yes or no. Did we, didn't we? Multiple choice, open text. Tell us about something, whatever. Formatting, I don't even care what the format is, but you're going to come up with questions based on one of these 4 brand promises, and you'll be assigned one when we split up into the groups. You're either a discount brand. That is a brand that like sells whatever it is at the cheapest price. They know they're not necessarily getting the best quality, but they are getting the rock bottom price, the discount price. Maybe you're a luxury brand. That's top of the line, white glove concierge sort of service. It is an experience when you buy this widget or when you come to our place for this particular service, as opposed to, for example, the discount brand. Maybe your brand promise is ease of use. We fully integrate into the system that you already have, or it's a set it and forget it sort of a thing, or you won't even interact with us, and whatever service we provide will just magically happen as if it comes from unicorns. Best new tech, speaking of unicorns. So maybe this is it. We're the bleeding edge. We have the newest, greatest, nicest thing. By the way, we may not be as easy to use. See, for example, the brand promises are different. Sometimes they're exclusive of each other. But what you will get is the newest, neatest, whiz-bang thing. All right, so those are the 4 brand promises. And in the groups, when we break out in the groups, I want you to brainstorm. If I could ask our customers in this scenario, given that this is our brand promise, any questions, what would they be? So that's the like sticky notes on the mural board at first. And then the output for the group is you're allowed 4 questions. What would they be? Which is to say, we brainstormed and came up with a whole bunch of questions. Now let's pick the top 4. And then that's what the discussion, Alistair, will be when we get back.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks, E. Great presentation.
I'm stopping sharing.
Yes. So I have shared the link in the chat. For those of you who are new to Mural, it's going to ask you just to enter your email address. I would recommend that you just do it real quick. You're not creating a login, but it will make it easier if you come back to join us, which we hope you do in April. But you'll see on the board, based on your room number. So we'll have 6 rooms 5 rooms that Tom is spinning up. So we will have 1 for each of the brand promises, and then we'll actually have 2 in the discount category. So room 1 through 5, we'll take it. And you're going to take your group, your cluster. You can start brainstorming, and then we'll give you a 5-minute warning to get things wrapped up and allow you to pull together, what are the 4 questions that you would want to ask. I ask you to put each question in its own sticky because what we're going to do is we're going to bring you all back and then send you back in to vote actually on the questions that you think are the best. And you might have been part of luxury, but find something in the bleeding edge that you found super interesting and might apply to the luxury brand based on based on some experience. So we'll send you back in to vote, and then of course we'll bring you back, and Z and I will start the discussion, but we hope we get some good participation from the group. So with that, Tom, why don't you go ahead and open up the rooms?
Okay, so some people are still playing around in there. What we're going to be asking folks to do is to vote on the questions that they like the most, that they feel do the best job in accomplishing the tasks that you guys were set out to do. So I'm going to go ahead and allow you to have 3 votes. In doing that, I'm going to start that. So if you go in, all you need to do is to click on the note that you're voting for. So you can choose up to 3 in doing so. Does anybody still need the link to get back in?
Just for clarity, where or what are we selecting from for our 3 votes? Down one column or?
So
The other questions, you can look across all the other questions and identify the best questions.
Okay.
All you got to do is click on them to vote.
Okay. From the whole.
yeah, from all of them that exist.
All across.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, let me go ahead. End session for everyone. All right. Wow. 5 votes for what is the most memorable moment. Oh, very cool. All right.
Nice.
So we've got 5, 4, and then a few tied for 3 votes.
Tom, I'm gonna hand it over to you and Z for just a sec. I've got a dog
Sure,
situation.
no problem. No problem. All right. So top vote getter, what is the most memorable moment with the experience that you'd share with others? Who posted that? And would you like to share your rationale behind that question?
Hi, Tom. This is Simone. Hi,
Simone.
everybody. Yeah, that particular post-it was in our group. We had it under luxury. And the way we kicked off our conversation was our assumption that in the luxury space, customers would not be expecting to be quote unquote bothered with a very structured, give me your feedback, fill out this form. So we tried to make our questions very conversational, but at the same time to questions that would allow us to get to the core of what relates to that brand promise of offering luxury. So in summary, that is like an entitlement that you are not about delivering to an expectation. You are supposed to be exceeding and doing more above and beyond than what is table stakes and just expected from you. So that's kind of the background behind that question. And the next one would also be from our group.
Oh, that's yours too.
Yeah,
you're
how
gonna
about
want
that?
one too. Uh-huh.
Talk about
Okay.
delivering a luxury experience. I mean, she's superlative. She's the
I know.
top
I
1
know.
and 2. Yeah.
Well, and I think, as I look at both questions, the key is, the thing is it's gonna draw great data in, right? What makes it most memorable and what else could make the experience more magnificent. So
I'd also-
Z, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was going to say that, first of all, I agree. And, Simone obviously learned from tremendous professors along the line, obviously. And magnificently helped lead that group, as I would expect, certain people to be able to do. But one of the things that I really loved about this, and I was kind of looking through some of the others that were, and I'm not sure what it means on the mural board, Tom, to be faded out, but some of the ones that were faded out, which I guess means they weren't, put forward by the groups. Some of those actually have the same characteristics that these two have that I think is fantastic about it. And that is that they chose the format of leaving kind of an open-ended what, not how much or, rate it or were you, weren't you? I mean, I realize that the exercise was, leave formatting completely open, but kudos to those who chose, wow, it's like I'm a poet, to present open-ended questions like this. What these questions, Simone, that your group has here are meant to elicit, what is the most memorable moment? well, that could have been any of many steps through our process with our brand, with your experience along your journey. What else can we offer to make your experience even more magnificent? That, I think, is even a better question, because it offers to identify the gaps. Whereas that first question, the question that received the 5 votes, does say, hey, what was great? What was awesome? Tell us about it. You can still take that positive feedback and build on that and make experiences that are similar to that, that'll mimic that or advance the brand in the same way that that's doing. This second question here actually asks for what is missing? What's a gap? What can we do to fill that gap? It asks it in a positive way, which is also nice. But a lot of these other questions that I can't see now because it's faded out. Oh, I guess I closed this and then I can see it. Some of these in these other groups actually have that as well. What's out there that we could do better, right? That's awesome.
And Nick, you want to make sure that in the way you structure your open-ended question, you do want to get the positive feedback, because you want to reinforce that which is good, of course, and share that internally, because having good feedback, positive feedback, is a motivating factor for your employees who are delivering it. But at the same time, the second question about what else could we do that we're not delivering, that's where you're going to find the issues for improvement, or the way to prioritize that based on the analytics that are applied to that commentary.
100%. Rich, that's a great point, especially about that positivity there. One of the things, and this kind of like, I take every opportunity that I can to share this insight as well. Questions will come out about VOC. How do we improve our response rate within our surveys? How do we get more customers to give us feedback and not just click away from the survey? And one of the things, to your point about positivity, that I emphasize is the introduction of the invitation to offer feedback that we extend to our customers can start with a positive, what's in it for me sort of a thing. And here's an example. Last year, we asked you, and you told us that this was something that we could improve. Therefore, we did. Please help us by sharing more feedback so that this coming year we can take action on that. Not only is it positive, but you're evidencing, if you will, that we're going to take seriously the feedback that you give us. Talk about incentivizing people to respond. And that's, Rich, just as an opportunity. I know that's not necessarily what your point, but I take that as an opportunity to jump in and say, there's another positive thing that you can do that'll encourage feedback.
There is, yeah, I mean, I've certainly found there is nothing worse than going out and asking for feedback and then not doing anything with the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing more there's nothing that will discourage further feedback than 100%. The recognition that it's just going to a black hole.
Right.
Agreed.
The fun of asking for roadmap stuff is always
yeah.
is the big one, right?
All right. I'm getting some feedback, but I know where it's coming from. So rather than asking Alistair to mute everybody, I'm just going to call out the guy who's doing it and make him participate. Stuart, hi.
Hi. What am I doing?
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I work in service assurance, right? So repair and manage. So back to your very starting point of being able to correlate this feedback to KPIs, that's really where I focus, right? So that's why I like that quantitative. Also want the, the verbatim, but that quantitative number or the percentage of satisfied customers, I go back and correlate that to our service and quality metrics, right? So that's always where my mind is. So looking at these other perspectives around luxury and discount items, yeah, that's a world I don't live in. So it's kind of interesting to see this different approach.
You know what? That's a great topic of conversation. And here you go, Tom and Alistair. Maybe there's a future discussion for a roundtable about this. And that is, how do we tie our operational metrics in a meaningful way to what we're getting as customer feedback? Which is to say, well, when we reduce this, time to deliver or average handle time or something like that, it really does lead, or at least it correlates with, we got to be careful about causation here, right? I'm sure probably that Stuart, you'd say that as well.
That's right.
But we do notice an improvement in our customers' feedback when we did this or when we do that. Yeah.
Yep. Hey, Nick, I would add
Sorry, Scott, real quick. Patty's got her hand raised. Let me
Yep.
just jump.
Oh, I was trying to raise my hand.
Yeah,
So,
Scott, come on.
Come on, Scott.
Ladies first, Scott. Scott,
Patty.
ladies first. Okay.
You see, I get these educators here, and it's like, oh my God.
Come on, Scott.
No,
Scott and I
don't
know
no.
each
See,
other
Patty,
well.
see,
It's
Scott has
fine.
something
Exactly.
very
Go,
important
Patty.
he has to say.
I was looking for the hand. Patty, go.
It's in reaction, Scott. That's where it is. So the thing I was going to say, it kind of couples a little bit with what Stuart was saying, is that it's also looking at what kind of business you have. So I worked in luxury retail for decades, and I could talk directly to my customers and get their feedback. And the survey was very secondary in that case, because I had so much one-on-one conversation with them or with the people on the front line or something like that. There was a very different way in which feedback was gathered. During the other part of my retail career, I worked for Lord & Taylor and Marshall Fields. It was a lot more transactional. So it was a different way in which feedback was gathered. So I do think that that's worthy to have a conversation about in terms of, what is the business structure? Even today, I work for a company called Upwork, and we have an enterprise division. And in that enterprise division, we can get feedback either directly from the enterprise clients or from that front line. Whereas I work with the marketplace division, and we have millions of transactions that happen in marketplace. And there I need it to be a lot more clear and straightforward. So I think taking that into consideration is something to think about.
Patty, that's a great point, and it kind of goes back to an earlier part of the presentation that why you're asking is to identify insights into where you're lacking in the delivery of your brand promise. Depending on what your brand promise is, you might not need to directly interact with your customers in an inquisitive fashion at all to identify what that is, especially if it's a quality type of a thing. You can very easily find out where customers are complaining or where customers are calling in for help in the first place. Not that's not a blanket answer for every quality brand, but that's just an example.
All right, Scott, you got your hand raised now, so we'll jump to you.
Yeah.
I'd like to interrupt Scott, please, if that's all right.
Please do. Hey, I think, Nick, the operational KPIs, you got to know what those are. And also your VOC people better be talking to your marketing people to find out what the brand promise is, what we promised.
Yeah, CX is its own silo. Brilliant idea, right? Yeah.
Hey, it happens. It happens. Make sure you talk to the marketing folks just so we know what we're testing for, what brand promises have been put out there.
Hey,
Yeah.
don't forget about the employees and all of this. They have a little bit to do with the brand too, right?
Yeah, and they're gonna be sometimes your best source of information. Do you have a customer success team? Well, guess who's working with your customers all day, every day, trying to, in fact, oftentimes work your customers through your ridiculous and stupid processes so they know firsthand what they have to hold where they have to hold your customers' hands through something
to that point,
None
just
of my
real quick,
teams have ever said that, Nick, ever.
to that point, we did a survey to our business banking customers, about the loan onboarding experience, and typically we got pretty high scores. A couple of things around the complexity or timing or whatever. So no burning platform issues, but there was enough there that said, there's something more. But we then reached out to the employees who handle this and, basically candidly express all the things that you would like to see improved. The list is hundreds of things for improvement.
Yeah.
The customer may not necessarily see, but the agent or support staff or the salesperson deals with day in and day out, and it's frustrating. So, you have to look at all sides of the insight coin here.
Yeah, there's a validation part that'll drive that prioritization, right? Well, how is this actually impacting our customers' experiences? And it could be a couple levels in. Could be, for example, the support agent needs to do this, which makes that experience with the agent not what it should be. And so it's not simply that we're trying to alleviate all of our agents' issues. It's prioritizing, alleviating those issues that are most directly leading to a negative experience for the customer on the other end.
Well, awesome. I've really enjoyed the session. So Z, thank you so much.
Yep.
I do want to take a moment. I'm going to hand it back to Tom, who's going to introduce our wonderful speaker for April. Super
Yeah,
excited.
who just happens to be here. So Patty, I don't have to pull up a slide for you. Patty, tell us what we're going to be learning next month. Patty Soltis.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm coming next month to talk about, I did a session in the November. I'm sorry, it's the end of the day and I am so tired right now. But I'll be on it next time, I promise. But anyway, in the CXM conference, and if you haven't been, it's the most amazing conference. But I did a session on CX alignment and how CX leaders need to align with the C-suite. So we kind of ran out of time at the end. It didn't really get much to the storytelling component of it. So we're going to really do like a lightning round of here's everything we talked about in that session, and then we're going to go a little deeper into the now how do you tell the story of this? How do you make it relatable so that people understand it and they know that you aren't that CX person that's just talking about NPS all day long, but that you are actually tied into the organizational goals and you're helping them achieve and meet those.
There's a little bit of the operational metrics, Z, that you mentioned. We should get to a little bit of it because we know that our C-suite, depending on who they are, whether they're CEO, CFO, they all have different priorities. So got to be able to tweak that story to make sure that we get the right alignment with that particular C-suite member. So
sounds like fun, Patty. Looking forward to it.
Me too.
All right, guys. We'll see you next month. Have a good rest. Have a good rest of March.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Bye,
See you
guys.
next time.